We are going to do some core stuff. With the core stuff here, we're actually looking at how to train your abdominals while taking the hip flexors out of the equation. One of the more common concerns and complaints people have when they train their abs, I feel it all in my hips. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at two different movements, and we're going to look at how we can disengage the hip flexors from doing some of the work so we can keep all the tension purely in the abdominal wall. So we're going to do a crunch version, and we're going to do a reverse crunch or a leg raise version. So we're going to look at the first thing, and the basic concept behind what we're doing with both of these exercises is we're finding ways to engage the hamstrings while we do our crunching leg raising. So what we're taking advantage of is we're going to inhibit the hip flexors by engaging the opposing muscle. Okay, so hip flexors help to flex the hip, hamstrings aid in extending the hip. So when we bring them into play, it's going to make it so that the hips can't appropriately contribute to the flexing of the spine. So think of this like while trying to contract my bicep, contracting the tricep at the same time. When you bring the arm this way, you can't also bring the arm this way. So we're going to be using the hamstrings to take the hips out. So the first thing we're going to look at is the crunch. So the movement that we're going to look at here is actually from a PT named Vladimir Janda, who, if you're familiar with the concept of like upper and lower cross syndromes, he essentially coined those terms. This is also kind of one of his concepts, is this type of a sit-up, although we're going to treat it a little bit more like a crunch. What I've done is I've attached the band to the base of a bench. You can attach this to the base of a rack as well. This is kind of like just a medium level resistance, but pretty thick band, because I want something that is going to require my hamstrings to do a decent amount of work. I've got my heels inside the band, and then I want to anchor my heels now down to the ground. I'm going to start off in my crunch or sit-up position. Okay, and then just holding this position now, my hamstrings have to be engaged isometrically. I want to keep my legs maybe at like a 45-degree angle. I don't want to get super aggressive here. So we'll stay about 45 degrees. I'm digging my heels into the ground. I still want to get all this coming off of my abdominals. There's going to be a little bit more elevation than just like your standard issue crunch. So I'm going to come up a little further. So I'm here. So as I drive up, I'm also driving my heels into the ground. I'm flexing up. Okay, so this is something between a sit-up and a crunch because I'm keeping the legs more bent instead of having them fully extended, but I'm coming up and folding a lot more than I would with, again, just the typical crunch. And I'm going to resist the way back. Okay, and you can see where there's that level of when my hips are gone, it can show me how much work my abdominal wall actually has to do. So yeah, we're just going to come up, trying not to let the heels leave the ground. Again, pulling the heels into the floor to get the hamstrings going. Up and down. This is obviously not a great high repetition exercise unless you've got some phenomenal abdominal strength already, but if you do, you probably aren't even needing this exercise. If you're really struggling with it, you can even counterbalance potentially by holding a weight out in front of you, or even just by keeping my arms out in front. It allows to reduce a portion of my body weight. So you could do something like this, where we keep the arms out in front, make it a little bit easier on the way up, and then pull the arms back in to load up the way down. Arms out, and then arms crossed on the way down. So that's how we're going to apply that concept to our crunching motions. And then for the leg raise motions, we're going to do something super similar. So I'm going to use this. I've got just a half foam roller. I like this because it fits pretty snugly with what I'm about to do. But you can use a full-size foam roller. You can use a stability ball. Just anything that, again, for our purposes, all we're trying to do is we want to lock it behind the legs. I got the flat side against my hamstring. And now, same idea. I want to use this by engaging my hamstrings. Now it's removing my hips from the equation. Depending on, again, what your level of abdominal strength is, you can keep your hands down here. And then we're just going to try to draw the knees all the way up to our chest and roll up. and then down. If this is a challenge, you can always do something like this. So I'm just going to swing around this way, and I'm going to use the bench behind me for a little bit of leverage so that I can grip here. You'll see this set up on a lot of different abdominal benches inside the gym. Okay, so I'm still drawing here, and then I'm just using a little bit of the bench to help me come up. Okay, but again, basically all we're doing is we need to be able to keep the hamstrings going throughout the movement so that we're taking the contribution of the hip flexors away. So definitely give it a try, and you'll see a pretty massive difference.